Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. 32 stations across the great state of Michigan, AM stations, FM stations in the Lower Peninsula, in the Upper Peninsula, all across this great state of Michigan. I'm here for 3 hours every week talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and even some wild game cooking. This is something I've been doing for a long time. It's something I plan to continue to do for a long time, God willing. And I'm so glad to have you along with us. In this first show that we're recording in the new year. Now, you may have heard a show last week that aired in the new year, but this is the first show that we are actually recording in the new year. So once again, Happy New Year to you. It is wintertime now, isn't it? After a pretty mild December for many of us, most of us. And I have to be careful when I talk about weather and conditions and such, because here in Michigan, what you're getting in the Keweenaw is a far cry from what they're getting in the southern part of the state. So I understand that. I get that. But for the most part, December was a fairly mild month for most of us. But this last week or so, wintertime has certainly come on. We've had some cold temps. We've had some snow, making ice. People out on the ice now. Have fun. Be careful. It's interesting that some people have such a negative connotation about ice fishing. Oh, it's not safe. And you've got to make the distinction here. Are you on a small, shallow inland lake, or are you out on Saginaw Bay? Two completely different types of situations. And I remember years ago that the Coast Guard used to say no ice is safe ice, which was ludicrous, because I'll use Coast Guard Station Saginaw River as an example, and those guys didn't make that decision. That came down from above. But on the Saginaw River, for example, as the Coast Guard out of Cleveland or wherever was saying no ice is safe ice, the guys at Station Saginaw River were looking out their window and seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of ice fishermen on the ice in front of them. So fortunately, they reevaluated their ice safety position and came back with, well, yeah, it can be safe. Just be careful out there. And that's what I would say. Be careful when you're on the ice. Again, if you're on a small inland lake, it's a whole different situation than if you are on a river that has water flowing underneath you and current and bridges and abutments and such, or if you're on a big body of water like Green Bay or Saginaw Bay or Badenoch or someplace like that where you can get a crack and the wind can blow it out. But have fun. Have fun. Just use some common sense. People say, well, are you going to be on the ice this winter, Mike? No, I'm not. And it's not because I'm afraid of the ice. I used to ice fish a lot. But it's just not one of the things that I do these days. And I say this all the time. In Michigan, we are so lucky because we have so many great outdoor recreational opportunities that unless your full-time existence is to be outdoors, we don't have enough time to take advantage of everything. So we kind of got to pick and choose what our passions, what our addictions, that's probably a better word, what our addictions are. And ice fishing just isn't one of mine. I know it's going to be very, very productive, very effective. I see these guys out there pulling monster walleye, monster lake trout through the ice, and I get it. But it's just not something that that I get involved in these days. Although, if I was going to be on the ice, the one thing I could see myself doing this winter would be spearing. I am fascinated by this wintertime tradition of pike spearing. You're sitting there looking over a big hole, like 2x3 or bigger, and you're watching Mother Nature in real time underneath your feet. And that, to me, sounds pretty cool. I haven't done that since I was a kid either, but if I was going to be on the ice, that would be the one thing that can get me out there. So what else? Have you noticed, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but have you noticed the days are getting longer? I know, Avery, it's only January. Why are you talking about that? Because I've noticed it. Back in December, where I live, it could be dark at 5:15, certainly by 5:30. These days, on some days, you can see some light in the sky at 5:45. So the days are getting longer. We got that going for us. This past week, I had kind of a cool experience. I was going through some video archives, and as you can imagine, after, 4 decades in broadcasting, I have a pretty extensive library, and I've been pretty good about documenting and saving a lot of the content that I have produced over the years. And these days, those files are stored on hard drives, computer hard drives. And one of the things I want to do is start dipping back into this video archive, this library, and pulling out some of the old videos and posting them on my YouTube channel. For no other reason than, I don't know, just I think it would be cool. The video production stinks. The quality of the video stinks. My voice and delivery stink. But it's kind of cool to look back at the way we used to do things in the old days. So I pulled out one of these hard drives. I plugged it into my laptop, which is an unbelievable concept compared to the way we used to do things when I started, but that's a different story. And I'm going through some of these files, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to pull out of the archive and post on YouTube? And I found one that, again, I knew in my mind that I had done this, but I didn't know I still had the video file for it. And it was another interview with Mitch Rompola. You know Mitch, the guy who shot what would have been a world record whitetail in northern Michigan had he gone through with getting it documented and certified and verified. Before Mitch ever shot that big buck, I had been to his house. That video I had found years ago and posted, but this was a short interview I did with him for the local news station I was working at, using a franchise I had at the time called News 5 Outdoors. And Mitch is there holding his, at the time, was a Michigan State bow hunting record. Just talking about deer hunting. And so I posted that. Because anytime you can get video of Mitch Rompola, or anytime you have video of Mitch Rompola talking about deer hunting, I want to share it with the world because there's not a lot of that out there, right? So that got a lot of response. If you're interested in that concept, I would encourage you to go to my YouTube channel or my Facebook page. Both are Mike Avery Outdoors, and you can find that video there. When I was talking about the fact that I've done a pretty good job of documenting and recording and saving some of my content, the one thing that I did not save that really makes me so sad is after Mitch shot that, what I think is a world record whitetail, and I'll tell you that right now, I believe him. I had him on the radio show just days after shooting this thing. He was on my local radio show talking about how he had scouted that buck, walking us through the actual shot and the recovery. And it was very, very cool. And at the time, we weren't routinely recording our shows like we are these days. But I didn't think it was a big deal because I thought, well, I know Mitch. I've talked to Mitch. This is a story that'll be around for a long time, and he will be available to talk in the future and follow up. Little did I know that whole thing was going to blow up, and he was going to basically go underground, and he was going to not be available to anybody. So I wish I had that audio. However, I don't know where this came from. I was poking around YouTube the other day, and somebody has a segment of my radio interview with Mitch. I don't know where it came from, but it's posted over some video. Now, they didn't ask me for that. They don't have my permission to run it. They basically stole that audio, and I told them as such in the comments. Didn't seem to bother them. But if you're interested in that, check it out. I think it's very, very cool. So what else is going on right now? Predator hunting, right? As the deer hunters are out of the woods, at least in the northern part of our state, predator hunters are getting back out there. January is the time to apply for your spring turkey hunting application. Did you remember to put in for the Pure Michigan Hunt? As of the time we are recording this show right now, they have not drawn the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt, but I will tell you right now that I won the Pure Michigan Hunt. I mean, I have no proof of that, but I'm projecting positivity out into the universe. I will be, when they draw the Pure Michigan Hunt winners, one of them will be Mike A. That'll be me. Now, having said that, if God smiles on me and I actually did win the Pure Michigan Hunt, this is going to look really bad. I know it, because I have no inside information. Coming up after the break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show, Randy Budde of Savage Dog Outdoors talking about predator hunting. Then Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina wrapping up the ice fishing season and wrapping up the open water season, looking forward to ice. And then in hour number 2, my fishing buddy Tony Sobe talks about going through the ice on Saginaw Bay, almost dying, and what that was like. That and more coming up this week on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based Boning Archery. Boning has been a leader in the archery industry for more than 75 years now. They continue to innovate, come up with new products, new designs. If you are a bow hunter or a target archer, there's a very good chance you're using Boning products somewhere in your setup. Great people, great history. They've been in modern day bow hunting since the beginning. So they have a lot to be proud of. And I'm proud that they're a Michigan-based company. You know, I love working with those Michigan companies. Check them out online at boning.com, BOHNING, boning.com. While you're online, poke around and find Savage Dog Outdoors. These guys, in particular Randy Budde, are just hardcore coyote hunters. Well, they're hardcore hunters in general, but they have taken this passion of predator hunting and they have fine-tuned it to the point where they make it easy. And it's not. But I'll let Randy talk more about that. Randy, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing wonderful. Okay, so let's see, you had a great bear season, you had a great deer season, now you're getting ready to shoot some yotes again.
Yeah, well, I just filled my Bobcat tag the other day.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. That started January 1st through the 11th, so I was lucky and got one this year. Last year I didn't get one.
I didn't know that, Randy, so I've got to follow up on that. Now, you're not running them with dogs. You're calling them in, right?
Yep.
And is it a different deal completely than calling in coyotes?
Well, it is that almost all my coyote hunting I do after dark, where the bobcats, we can't hunt them after dark here in Michigan. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just daytime only. It's pretty similar. For the coyote hunting after dark, we hunt mostly open ground, and then for these bobcats, usually try to get close to some pretty thick cover, like real thick brush or swamp or thick pine, something like that. Try to get close to that and try to call them up to the edge. So
you're targeting cats. It's not like you're out there coyote hunting and a bobcat comes in. You're after cats.
Yep. We're going after cats. Yep.
Randy, listen, send me a picture of that. I'd love to share that on the Facebook page. Let people see what they look like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I feel like our bobcat population is good and healthy here in Michigan. In fact, we're seeing more of them downstate all the time.
Yeah, there's a good population of them. There's not near as many. Bobcat population ain't near as dense as like the fox or the coyotes. I think they cover a lot bigger ground. So there's not near as many of them. But there's a good population of them.
Do you use the same decoy and the same calls as you would for a coyote?
Yeah, sometimes I don't use a decoy. But yeah, I use the same call. The cats, they seem to like the higher pitched sounds, higher pitched bird sounds, and higher pitched rabbit sounds. But that's just my opinion. You know, you can call when we're coyote hunting, we call in some bobcats, and it sometimes they'll come to pup distress sounds that you don't know, but it seems like the high pitched rabbit and bird sounds do call in more of them.
Well, Randy, your opinion means a lot to me because in my mind, you are a master with predator hunting. How does a bobcat react to a call compared to a coyote?
Yeah, they're a lot different. Coyotes, a lot of times, if they're real interested, they come charging right in, and I mean, they'll cover ground fast. Whereas the bobcat, he'll sneak a little ways, and then he stops, and he'll sit there and look around, and then sometimes he'll sneak a little closer, and then sometimes when they get close to the call, they'll just lay down there and watch it. They're a lot more patient. They don't seem to be near as smart as like a coyote is. They're a lot. They come into the call a lot slower.
You know that what you're describing to me sounds like a dog versus a cat. I mean, they're just two different critters. The way they react to things.
Exactly. Yep. And then to a bobcat, you want to keep that call going because they lose interest real easy. Sometimes with a coyote, if you don't want to respond, you shut the call off, and that'll trigger him, and then he will come in. But bobcat, if you shut the call off or change the sound, a lot of times he just turns and leaves. He loses interest real easy.
Well, and in that case, I mean, you got to be real vigilant because these things could be sneaking in on you and sneaking off before you ever even see them.
That's exactly right. A lot of times I don't see them coming. I just you'd look over there and all of a sudden here they are. And, you know, they got good camouflage, so they blend in good. So I think a lot of times when you're out calling them, you probably miss not seeing a lot of them that come in.
Now, did you say you're right back in the middle of the swamp or out on the edges?
I try to get on the edge so I can see, or maybe a more open part in the woods close to thick cover where I can see a little bit, just to make it easier to spot them.
Yeah, yeah. How big is a Michigan bobcat?
The females usually run 15 to 20 pounds, the females, and then the toms, they're quite a bit bigger. The one I killed this year is the biggest one I've ever got. It was 33 pounds, which that is a big cat. They run, I'm just kind of guessing, but I'd say a male, it probably average 25, 35 pounds in that range. They have killed some. They do kill some of them that's, I believe, up close to 40 pounds.
And they look a lot bigger with all that fur.
Yeah, but just like that cat that I just killed, a 33-pounder, that's a big cat.
Yeah, yeah. Have you tried eating them? I know people eat mountain lion. They say it's wonderful.
I've heard that about bobcat too, but no, I'm not ready to try to eat them. I'd lot rather eat one of them than a coyote because they don't stink near as bad.
Well, you got a freezer full of venison and bear meat. You don't need to eat a bobcat.
That's right.
What are they? I mean, we hunt them because they're predators. Do they eat the same type of game that a coyote does? I mean, will a bobcat take down a deer, or are they strictly more of a small game predator?
Well, I think they'll eat anything. A friend of mine, he was lucky and got his bobcat this year, and he gutted it out to see what it had been eating, and it sounded like it had just been eating mostly birds. But I do know of instances where we've seen one time in the summertime that a bobcat had killed this adult doe in a food plot, and it was a corn food plot. And it drugged that deer about 15, 20 yards, and it covered it up with ferns and stuff. And the landowner set a camera there, and the bobcat kept coming back to that deer. So he evidently killed that deer in that corn and then drug it out of the edge of the corn and buried it. So, wow. An adult calm bobcat is definitely capable of killing an adult deer.
Wow. And a real trophy, too, because you can shoot unlimited coyotes as much as you want, as much as you can, yet you're limited to one bobcat a year. You say you didn't even get one last year, so this is a real trophy.
Yes, it is. It's we can kill 2 bobcats in Michigan, but only one can be in the Lower Peninsula, and the other one has to be in the UP. And then, too, we've only got, on the west side of the state, we only have a 11-day season. Some of the places in the Lower Peninsula have a longer season, like up in the Gaylord area. They have a fairly long season up there, but over on the west side of the state, the seasons are just 11 days. So it is it's a good trophy to get.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get his hide tan. They have a really nice hide. They're pretty, and they're
beautiful. And speaking of the UP, I remember you telling us a story. Oh, maybe even as recent as last year. Maybe it was a couple of years ago. You or one of your guys was up in the UP coyote hunting, and you called in a pack of wolves.
Yep. Yeah. You do call in the wolves up there. I read where they're so smart and everything, but I don't know. They sure will sucker into that predator call.
Well, maybe if we ever get a wolf hunt, you can go up there and help address that population.
Yeah, that would be nice.
All right, so listen, let's turn our attention to coyotes here. Their breeding season is coming up here real soon, isn't it?
I think probably they already are. I've heard of some people getting some females that's been in heat. I haven't been out a lot lately. The little bit I've been out, it seems like I've been calling in more fox than coyotes. But, I live in a pretty heavily hunted area, and, our deer season's pretty long. So I think them coyotes are probably a little bit spooked right now from all the traffic in the woods. And then any deer hunter that sees a coyote's going to try to kill
him.
Yeah. I think they're a little spooked right now. I usually don't do very good at coyote hunting this time of the year, but usually we have a lot of snow, whereas right now we just got a few inches of snow, so it is kind of nice out there.
That's interesting because most coyote hunters I know, this is when they hunt. This is when they get serious about it. You hunt right on through the summertime.
Yep. The dog hunters, they kind of need the snow to find the track. So this is kind of the time of the year for the dog hunters. But, yeah, they're out there, and you can get them. I almost think if you run a daytime hunt, this is probably a better time of the year to be after them than more so than any other time of the year.
Well, hang on, Randy. I want to follow up on that, and I got to follow up on fox hunting too. We're talking with Randy Budde of Savage Dog Outdoors. Randy is again, he's an expert predator hunter. You heard the story about Bobcat. He's calling in fox. He shoots a lot of coyotes every year, and he's not afraid to share his knowledge, and I appreciate that. So we'll learn more about that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM and in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And remember, if you want to save 25% on your MUCC membership, use the promo code MIKE, all caps MIKE, and you can save on either signing up for your first time joining MUCC or your renewal. MUCC.org, promo code MIKE. While you are online, check out Savage Dog Outdoors. Savage Dog Outdoors, very, very cool videos online. Randy Budde, one of the guys behind Savage Dog, and Randy, again, you threw me a bone, and I appreciate it. You brought up fox. Let's talk about that a little bit. Now, do you ever target fox, or is that always just a bonus when you're out yote hunting?
No, it's basically just a bonus. I usually don't go out strictly after them. They're pretty much in the same areas. They are different in some respects. Fox they don't seem to be near as skittish as like coyotes. But it does seem like the fox has more of a tendency to smell you than the coyotes do, probably because they're more afraid of getting ate by the coyotes.
Yeah, they're prey themselves.
Yeah, and then they're a lot smaller target. It's funny just here recently, everybody's been killing a lot more fox, and it seems like been seeing a lot more fox.
I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is on that. Of course, we have a season on the fox, so.
Well, yeah, that was another. Coyote is unlimited. You get unlimited number year-round. There's a very, very strict season and limit on bobcats. Is there a seasonal limit on fox?
There's not a limit on them, but the season runs from, I believe, middle of October to, I could be wrong on the dates, but I think they go to like the middle of February.
Okay.
So there is a season on them. So,
and you'll find fox and coyotes in the same area, right?
Yes, you do. There's been times where I've shot a fox and coyote right on the same set. But normally I don't think they like hanging out too close to each other because the coyote will try to kill that fox.
Sure. As we come into this coyote breeding season here, and I know you said this isn't really your favorite time of year to hunt, but for a lot of hunters it is. Can you capitalize on the fact that they're out looking for mates? Does that help in any way?
No, I don't think it does. Maybe howls and stuff probably are a little more effective this time of the year right now because they are looking for mates, but they're pretty much, coyotes are pretty much on the move all year long, except when the snow gets deep, then they kind of hunker down and don't move so much. But when the snow ain't deep and the traveling's easy, them coyotes are usually on the move.
Are you more likely to call in a pair of coyotes this time of year? Are they hanging around together, or am I reading too much into this?
I haven't been able to come up with anything on that because it seems like that certain times all year round you'll get certain times where there's 2 or 3 coyotes together. So I don't think it's any more apt to happen now than any other time of the year. It's not uncommon to call in 2 or 3 coyotes together any time of the year, but they're not always together either. Sometimes they're in the same area, but they're out hunting separate from each other.
They don't hunt in packs like a wolf would.
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I think as a rule they're out doing their own thing on their own, in the same area. And then I've seen times like I can remember one time in particular where I was using rabbit distress, and there was a coyote coming in, and it let out a howl, and then it kept coming in after it howled. Well, we killed that coyote, and then it was just a matter of a minute or two, and the other coyote showed up. So I almost think he was saying, "Hey, I found lunch over here. Come on over." So, yeah, they're that's why when I kill a coyote, I'll call that spot longer than normal. I'll keep calling because that kind of tells me there's probably some more in the area. And a lot of times I've seen times where I'll just keep calling and they'll just keep coming in and
keep going down.
Kill 3 or 4 of them right in that spot. And they don't all come together. And it's nice. They kind of come individually and you end up calling in 3 or 4 of them.
Randy Budde of Savage Dog Outdoors, I will keep following you online and enjoying your hunts. Please send me that picture of that bobcat, and I'll post it, and I would encourage people to check you guys out online, Savage Dog Outdoors. Always a pleasure, Randy. Good hunting to you.
Nice talking to you, Mike.
All right, same here. We'll take a break on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about fishing, the end of the open water trolling season. Looking forward to ice fishing with Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM and WTIQ FM 95.3. You can hear us in, let's go to Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. Handmade, in some cases custom-made, works of art that are designed to be used. Chris Durson of Rapid River says, I know they're beautiful, but use them. We don't make them so you can hang them on a wall. Put them in your pocket. Put them on your belt. Use them, and I use mine every day. Check out their showroom, by the way. In Rapid River. It's an absolutely beautiful place. If you can't make it there, go to their website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, rapidriverknifeworks.com. I gave 3 of their knives as Christmas gifts, and I made my son and 2 of my grandsons very, very happy. rapidriverknifeworks.com. While you are online, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to LinwoodBeachMarina.com. I always say Linwood Beach is your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. And to talk more about that, Jason Graham. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike? Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Jason, I don't think we've met, but I sure have heard a lot about you. Our mutual friend Brad Dupuis was out fishing with you. He said you've got a system that's unreal. Scott Safransky of Linwood Beach speaks very highly of you. In fact, he says that you're the guy who convinced Bobby Sullivan to go to the tactic that caught him that new state record king salmon.
That is correct. Well, I use a product called Torpedo weighted steel, and basically what it's doing for us is taking the place of lead core or copper. And that system for me, it's less tangles, it's easier to deploy, less line in the water, and it's catching a lot of fish as far as walleye and salmon on the west side of the state, both. Yeah,
I need to talk more with you about that because I like lead core, but I don't like the tangles, I don't like the kinks, so I'm going to follow up with you on that. Safe to say the open water trolling season on Saginaw Bay done now?
It looks like it. You know, our marina now is all locked in with ice. There's open water probably 100 feet out, but with the wind blowing today, the gale warning we're having, the ice is going to move around and pile up somewhere. The report I saw yesterday was the river mouth was froze over too, so nobody can get out of the river mouth. So as of right now, unless we have a big warm-up, it looks like the trolling season is done, yes.
And we are recording this midweek, and you and I both know, and we want to let our listeners remind them that ice conditions change all the time. But is anybody out on the ice yet?
We had a gentleman here in the marina this week checking the ice. We have about 3 inches. It's not good safe ice. And keep in mind, we do have bubblers going in corners of the marina to keep the pylon safe and the dock safe. So if you're going to venture out, be very careful on the ice conditions right now.
So we're in that weird period. We're in that in-between period right now.
That is correct. The fish are still there. Once we get a good solid ice and get out there, I think this ice fishing season is going to be phenomenal, especially close to shore. We don't have to venture out, 4, 5, 6 miles. It should be close to shore this season for sure.
Was your late season trolling action, was this an outstanding season? I mean, I know it was great. I should say, was this an unusual season, or did you guys just happen to find the fish that are always out there that time of year?
A little of both. There was pods of fish in different areas this year. So by chance, if you had a pod yesterday and it wasn't firing, you go to the next spot and those fish are biting. I had 4 or 5 areas, and they were probably the size of a football field, give or take. And if you found that magic spot, it was lights out. You'd have 4 or 5 fish on every pass through that area.
Well, why are they there? Are you some structure, some kind of hump or something, or what?
Well, these fish, they want to migrate, and they're putting the feed bags on. They're getting ready to do that, do the spawn in the spring. But there's so much bait. There's alewives out there now. The blue shiners, and there's so much bait in the system right now, and all those fish want to come in and put the feed on. And it was in different spots. One place you'd have shiners, and one place you'd have the small minnows and big minnows, and then you could match the hatch. The fish that was just lights out fishing. So.
Well, all right. So what you're describing here, you need to be mobile. You needed to be in a boat to find these fish and follow these fish here. When guys get out on the ice, you're limited, right? I mean, yeah, you can move around, but you can't follow them like you can with a boat. How do you find those fish at first ice?
First ice, look at the contour breaks. If you have, most of the guys now have a GPS of some kind, either on the machine or handheld. You find that contour break, and those, maybe a 1-foot break or a 2-foot break, those subtle little breaks, or a rock pile or weed bed that you fished in the past. Those are my starting points as far as trying to find an area. Once you find the area, you have to narrow it down to an inside turn, outside turn. If the fish are, halfway down or towards the bottom, there's different variables. But electronics are huge. The new Panoptics, you can turn it around your ice holes and see which direction the fish are actually at, or the 360 imaging. There's so many different electronic systems out there now that you can find these fish faster than you could back in the day. We just punched a bunch of holes and walking around and fishing them. So
yeah, these electronics are crazy, but. This is interesting. I've got a bunch of rock piles that I have marked in the summertime trolling, and you say that's a good place to start going back through the ice.
It's a great place to start. Sometimes it's on top of the rock pile, sometimes it's on the edge of the rock pile. You have to figure out which that fish is actually holding on. Typically, if there's a wind or a current, they'll get on the downside of that rock pile as well. So typically, if I were to fish a rock pile, let's say it's the size of a basketball court or smaller, I would get on the down current side of that. Keep in mind the current in the river is always flowing out. Even if there's ice on it, there's still a current flow on that. So get on the downriver side of that rock pile is how I start, and then move around from there. Jason
Graham of Linwood Beach Marina, good advice. I'm sure you and I will talk again soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Jason. LinwoodBeachMarina.com. I always say you're year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, and Jason has given another example of that. We're going to kind of continue on this theme as we take a break for the top of the hour. Coming up in hour number 2, a very good friend of mine, Tony Soave, who has spent his life on Saginaw Bay as a conservation officer and hardcore angler, is going to tell us
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yeiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show, the Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, heard on 32 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And by now, you know the reasons I say it like this, because I like to make the distinction and promote the fact that this is first and foremost a radio show, a syndicated radio show, one of the biggest syndicated statewide shows, outdoor shows in the country, that also is made available as a podcast. But I do think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. But if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state that, at least for now, isn't covered by the broadcast signal of the show, you can always hear us as a podcast. That podcast available anywhere. I mean, it's on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, right down through the whole, even on YouTube. Even on YouTube, any place that you hear your podcasts from, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I do need to, as long as I'm doing some blatant self-promotion, talk about the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network. Each month, I produce podcasts for offshore tackle, angler quest boats, polar craft boats, shadow hunter blinds, and the newest addition to the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network is the Primal Podcast, put together from the folks from Primal Tree Stands and Primal Ground Blinds. You know I love that Wraith 270 see-through ground blind from Primal. And a little heads up here, a little inside baseball. At the ATA show in Louisville, they unveiled a couple of new blinds, including a new see-through blind. More details on that coming up. Regardless, though, if you're listening to the broadcast version of the show or the podcast, I do thank you very much. I want to talk now with a good friend of mine. I mean, a very good friend of mine. In fact, he's probably my very best fishing buddy and has spent more hours on the angler quest, on my angler quest, than anybody other than me. In fact, I think he has snuck into the marina and taken out my angler quest when I didn't even know he was out there. His name is Tony Sobe. He is a retired conservation officer who spent most of his career in the Saginaw Bay area. Much of his time was spent patrolling the ice of Saginaw Bay and out there as a recreational angler as well. And the story that we're going to tell now, even though it's centered around Saginaw Bay, it pertains to big water ice in general. So just keep that in mind. Tony, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was telling Denise, we miss you and Mary, and we need to get together.
We do. We are way overdue.
and tell some fishing stories and smoke some cigars.
Yeah, we don't need to wait till June to do that.
No, we don't. We don't. So listen, I set the scene here a little bit, but let's talk more about this. I mean, you are a guy who has extensive knowledge, extensive experience, and extensive training on the ice.
Yeah, and you and I discussed it a little bit when I told you I was ready to talk about it. I've had a lot of time to think about this, probably 5 years, I think it was.
Oh, has it been that long now?
I think it's 5 years
Wow.
This month. Yeah, time flies. I was looking through my pictures and looking at my Elliott Lake brook trout fishing trip, and that was the first trip there was a week after I broke through the ice. So I couldn't believe it was that long ago, but yeah, I've had a lot of experience on the bay, on soft water, hard water. I was trained as an ice rescue safety instructor, trained with Joe Marion and Jason Rule. Joe, you have on the show all the time. We taught our COs in the academies, ice rescue training. So I had a lot of experience. And when you asked me shortly after the incident, you want to talk about it on my show, I thought, it was humbling and it was embarrassing, to say the least, you know, coming from someone who was supposed to know better, that it happened to me. And I guess that's kind of why I thought, you know what, it's time to talk about it and maybe give a little insight on what happened with my experience on the ice, and hope it never happens to anyone again. I'm very fortunate. I mean, very, very lucky to be alive. Most people that break through the ice on Saginaw Bay don't live to talk about it, but
especially in the conditions and the situation you were in. And I appreciate you talking about it, Tony. Let's set the stage. Let's set the scene here. You were out fishing with some buddies. It was an evening trip, right?
Correct. Yep. I got a call from a buddy of mine, Joe LaBelle. He said, "Hey, let's go out fishing by the island." I said, "Sure." So he lives on the Cuyahoga River. Normally, I would drive over and meet him there. We'd travel out together. One of the things that we stress, don't fish alone. I decided to drive over to Finn Road Launch because it was a shorter drive for me. So we met out on the ice, and we set up on the east side of the island. I'm sure all your listeners that are from this area knows exactly what I'm talking about. East side of Spoils Island, just outside of the Saginaw River mouth.
And how was the ice? Ice was good?
Ice was great. Yeah, we probably had 14, 15 inches of good ice, solid ice. Yep. So we fished that evening and had a really good evening. Caught some nice walleye, and we fished a little bit later than normal. We stayed after dark to see if the bite would turn on, and I think we caught a couple more fish. It was starting to get windy and snowing and blowing, and I can recall pretty well how nasty it was starting to get. So it was cold. Wind was blowing the snow across the ice. So we said, "Hey, we better pack up and head out." So he packed up. I packed up. We said our goodbyes. He headed west towards the Cuyahoga River, and I headed east towards Finn Road Launch. Well, I made another mistake that day. I didn't bring my GPS. I have a mount on my snow machine for a GPS, and I also have the Navionics app on my phone that I use regularly. I got lazy, I got complacent, and I didn't use either one. I started heading east, and I was probably about the middle of the island where we were fishing, so I knew I was far enough from where the hot ponds are, the warm water discharge from Consumers Power. It comes out. And that area traditionally, as you know, does not freeze unless we get some really, really below zero temperatures sustained. At least there's always a good chunk of open water there. So where I was heading east, I thought I'm well far north of the hot ponds. As I'm driving along, I'm pulling my ice shanty full of all my gear, and I don't have a fast sled. I have a 2-up, more built for going through snow than for speed. And I'm tooling along, and I see a light on shore that, in my mind, is the light at the Finn Road boat launch. There's a bright light that you can see from the bay. So I see that light, and I instinctively start veering on an angle towards that light. I don't keep going east like I should have and then cut straight in. I cut an angle to try and save some time. So I'm tooling along. I'm getting closer to that light, and I'm watching the snow-covered ice, and all of a sudden the snow-covered ice turns black. I thought, that's weird. My first thought in my mind, maybe it's just an area where there is no snow. And within seconds, I could feel the machine start to bog down, and it hit me. I am not in a good place. So I assumed it was, in my mind still, it wasn't the hot ponds. I just thought it was maybe a patch of open water. So I hit the accelerator, tried to go across, and I probably made it another 20 to 30 feet and started to slowly sink.
Hang tight, Tony. We got to interrupt the story there because I've got to take a break.
Okay.
Obviously,
right.
We're going to hear more about this, and I hate to interrupt you. We're talking with retired conservation officer Tony Soave, and full disclosure here, he's a very good friend of mine. He's my best fishing buddy. About a situation he had on Saginaw Bay a few years ago, and this is the first time he's actually talked about it. But a body of water that he had patrolled for years, he had trained on for years, he had trained others about how to be safe on the ice. He had rescued people off that ice, out of that water, and he finds himself in a bad, bad situation. We will have more coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versaskins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. I love Michigan-based, family-owned Versaskins. Paul Perrone came up with a great concept. Rather than buy a new hunting suit for every season, why not just put some skins with different color like blaze orange or snow camo or whatever, snap them on, zip them on, and you're good to go. Quality, warm, water-resistant Versaskins. Check them out online at Versaskins.com. That's Versaskins.com. Right now we're talking with a buddy of mine. His name is Tony Sobe. He's a retired Michigan conservation officer who spent most of his career on Saginaw Bay, patrolling Saginaw Bay, fishing on Saginaw Bay, rescuing people off from Saginaw Bay. And before the break, he was telling us a story, and this is the first time he's told the story, of being out on Saginaw Bay, coming into shore after an evening of fishing. He wasn't where he thought he was, and Tony, you said you felt that sled drop out from underneath you.
Yep. I hit the accelerator and thinking about it afterwards, that was probably one of the things that saved my life, gave me another 20 to 30 feet. So as I'm sinking down into the water, the snowmobile came to a rest on the bottom, and my ice shanty was hooked to the tow bar, and that was actually floating. So I was actually able to stand on top of my snowmobile and probably roughly waist deep water. At that point, it was, I think I went through 4 stages. The first one was disbelief. You know, it's kind of a surreal feeling that you're thinking it's a dream. It can't be happening. How can this be happening? And then once I looked around, I realized, no, this isn't a dream. I'm actually in deep doo-doo here. I looked around, and it's hard to describe. Sorry, Mike.
No, listen, you almost died. I mean, the grace of God is the only thing that got you out of that situation. So I completely understand. I can't even imagine being in that situation. So you go through the ice, you look around, you realize that you're not where you thought you were. You're in, 8 feet of water, standing on top of your sled. It's 33-degree water. What do you do then? I mean, how did you get out of it, Tony?
Well, I'm looking around. I see the windmills, the lights on the horizon off to the east in the thumb, and anybody that fishes the bay knows exactly what I'm talking about. I start yelling. It's just an eerie feeling. I yell for a few minutes, and I think, why am I yelling? There's absolutely nobody out here. I mean, nobody out here. I can see consumers. I can see the lights, the windmill. So my next stage I go into is anger, I'm thinking, oh man, I've got this this trip planned to Canada next week. How am I going to make it? It's hard to fathom that I'm going through this thought process. Yeah. But after that, it was, okay, I think I have more to worry about than a fishing trip at this point. And then I went into survival mode. So now I'm thinking, what do I do? I start going back to my training. I left my helmet on. You lose body heat through your head. So I left my helmet on to keep the body heat in. Didn't unzip my jacket. Obviously, I was completely soaked, and I was starting to freeze from the waist up. I thought, do I crawl into my ice shanty and see if I can get in there, cover up, maybe get the heater started, buy some time until my wife realizes that I'm not home? And again, you know me, Mary knows me. I started thinking, there's no way she's not going to think that I'm at the boat launch.
Shooting the breeze.
Right, shooting the breeze, exactly, telling fish stories, and not realize why I'm not home. So I thought, that's not going to work. I tried to push on the shanty, and there was no way I could get into the ice shanty. So my next thought was, I have to get myself out. I had my ice picks. I carry ice picks with me anytime I go out on the ice. I stepped off the snowmobile, and it was probably up to my neck deep, and I walked out to where I broke in thinking I could possibly get up there. I swung at the ice with the ice picks, and all I could do was break through. Obviously, that's why my machine broke through. So that option was out. I turned around, walked back to the snow machine, stood back up, looked towards the light, and then decided I have to try and make my way towards shore. So I grabbed a big, heavy-duty handled ice pick, a Fraybill, or not ice pick, an ice scoop out of my ice shanty. I thought, if I have to break some ice, I can use this. So I stepped off my ice shanty. I'm in neck-deep water, stepped off my snowmobile, and I'm walking through open water, and I believe that was possibly another reason that helped me was obviously the water temperature there is above freezing. So, again, another eerie feeling. I'm walking through water in the dark, watching the snow blow across, and I get to an area where there's more ice, and I start busting it with the ice scoop. Well, it's not strong enough for me to jump up on to get out, but it's too thick to just push with my hands. So I'm guessing I went, just in my mind, 100 yards at least, busting ice with my elbows and with my ice scoop, trying to get to good ice. It was at least 100 yards. It could have been farther. So I get to a point to where the water is probably chest deep, and I don't know why this was there, but there was just a tight, a narrow opening, maybe 12 to 14 inches wide, a crack in the ice. So I was able to shimmy through that ice. I'm guessing maybe 40 yards, 30 to 40 yards, until I came up to hard enough ice that I thought I could stand up on. I got to that point, and I pushed on the ice. It was strong enough for me to get myself out. So I pulled myself up, laid down, and again, in your training, you roll. You don't stand up immediately until you know you have safe ice. You want to distribute your body weight. So I rolled probably 20 yards and finally stood up. And at this point, I am pretty cold and I'm frozen. But I'm guessing it's probably in the teens or wind chill single digits. So I'm completely encased in a shell of ice, like Ralphie's. I look like Ralphie's younger brother in that snowsuit.
And I'm going to, just for time's sake here, I'm going to kind of help this along here a little bit.
Yep.
So the light you saw was not the light you thought you saw. So you were going into the wrong spot. You got too close to the hot ponds and you broke through. So then were you able to get yourself to shore, or did somebody have to come out and rescue? How did that work?
Nope. So the light turned out to be the end of Knight Road, a mile west of Finn Road. I was able to get to the dike. Once I got to the dike at the end of Knight Road, I knew exactly where I was. Used my scoop to push my way up the rocks, and this is a long dike that stretches way out into the bay. I walked all the way down that dike, got to a house that I recognized. I knew who lived there. I've talked to him many times, been out there duck hunting. Bill Mahar, him and his wife Jody, I owe them my life. Made it to their house. Thank God they were home. Had they not been home, I probably wouldn't be here. I banged on the door. They opened the door. The look on their faces. They pulled me in, got my helmet off, realized who it was. I couldn't even talk at that point. They undressed me, wrapped me in some blankets, called 911. They had an ambulance show up. Ambulance came in, took me out, wrapped me in some warm blankets, started an IV, and took me to the hospital, and I had to stay there probably 2-3 hours to warm up and get my body core temperature back up.
I appreciate you sharing this story. I know how hard it is for you to share this story, Tony, and I appreciate it. And the reason I wanted you to share it is primarily, if this can happen to a guy like you who has been trained and spent his entire life out there, it can happen to anybody. Are you done ice fishing, or do you still go back out there?
No, I still. It's funny you say that. I went out probably 4 days after that with Joe LaBelle. We went back out off of Linwood Road. He said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "Absolutely."
Back on the horse.
Back on the horse.
Oh, man.
And a positive note out of the whole thing, I ended up getting my snowmobile out the next day. There was a walleye froze. One of my walleye froze to the side of my sled. That was the most expensive, delicious walleye dinner I had for that night.
Yeah, it's a good thing you got that out, or the darn DNR would have fined you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, Tony, listen, I appreciate you sharing that story. And as you say, if this keeps one person from going through the same thing you had to, it's entirely worth it. But you know what? I'm just going to wait until springtime. We can go out on the angler quest, kick our feet up, and if we do go in, it'll be 70-degree water and nothing bad's going to happen to us.
I can swim back to the boat.
There you go.
Can I add something real quick, Mike?
Real quick.
Bring a cell phone with you. Have it in a waterproof bag or case. I had my phone, and it was completely drenched and useless.
More good information from Tony Sobe. Tony, I do appreciate that very, very much. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, springtime turkey season is coming up, and now is the time to apply for that tag. Rachel Leightner from the DNR will be along with us to talk more about that. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Now, that story that Tony Sobe was telling about going through the ice on Saginaw Bay, terrifying story. I had heard that story many times in person, and I really wanted Tony to share that. I'm so glad that he did, and it was a hard story to tell. I mean, I've never been in a near-death situation, and to relive it and tell it, I appreciate that. But just a reminder, even though that story centered around Saginaw Bay, the lessons there are good for any time you're going to be out on the ice. So just please keep that in mind. I'm not thinking about ice fishing. I'm not much of an ice fisherman. I used to enjoy it. I just don't do it these days. You know what's on my mind right now? Turkey season. Springtime turkey season is the next thing I'm getting excited about. And now is the time, if you want to apply for one of the limited quota tags, to do that. Rachel Leightner's with the DNR, and she joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Rachel, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am doing just great, because when we get to the time of year where it's time to apply for the turkey tags, I know that good things are coming up.
Sure does. Mean spring right around the corner, and we can use a little bit of that right now while we get this blizzard.
That's for sure. Now, I always have people I always apply for ZZ, and ZZ I don't think has ever sold out, has it? So, I mean, are there some hunts where we really don't need to apply ahead of time, or to be safe, should we apply to be sure we're going to get what we want?
Yeah, Unit ZZ has never sold out, but it has come close. I mean, we've seen a huge increase in spring turkey hunters in the last 2 years, so it's not a bad idea to start applying for that unit. But there are some units every year that do totally sell out, some of those smaller units in southern Michigan. So especially if you're a public land hunter in southern Michigan, you might want to consider looking at those hunt units and whether or not you should put in for a license. But generally, some of those larger units, you can pick up a leftover license, but I definitely would encourage hunters to just take a look and make sure they know when they want to hunt, especially.
Yeah, that's good advice. And you know, I love turkey hunting so much that I just don't want to take a chance. Yes, the tag is probably going to be there. It's going to be available. But, Rachel, it would break my heart if I dragged my feet and couldn't get a tag.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for a lot of hunters, though we do have, one guaranteed license. So if for some reason you can't get your application in or you're not successful this year, the Hunt 234 license, that is guaranteed, and you don't need to apply for it. That is a later hunt, so you're hunting in May, but you do get all of May. So there are some options if you're not drawn successful, but you're right, you don't want to chance it, so put in an application if you're concerned. So
234, what I affectionately call the mosquito season, there's no quota on that?
There is not. Nope, that's a guaranteed license. It's going to be open for purchase March 21st for anybody who either puts in for a license or doesn't or whatnot. That'll be available to you.
So we've got the month of January to apply. When do you draw those tags?
You do. You've got through February 1st to apply, and those drawing results are going to be available March 7th.
March 7th, and you can apply in person at any licensed agent. What I'm doing these days, Rachel, is I just apply for everything online. It's just, I think, so much easier.
Oh, yeah, it's so convenient. You can go to michigan.gov/turkey or the Michigan e-license store and just apply right through your phone or over the computer. It's very simple to do.
Michigan.gov/DNR. And you've got through February 1st?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Hey, listen, I'm going to change gears on here a little bit, and I'm surprising you, but aren't you still involved in the DNR podcast?
I am, yes, the Wild Talk Podcast.
Tell me more about that. I think that's a cool project.
Oh, it's the best. It's a Wild Talk Podcast. We discuss all things Michigan DNR wildlife. So we bring on every episode, we've got a guest that comes on, talks about something wildlife related. We also highlight species. So if you ever want to learn a little bit more about the snowshoe hare, the wild turkey, voles or moles, we usually have got some kind of interesting species to highlight, and also to talk about some nuisance conflicts you might be having. You know, turkeys can sometimes cause a problem for you. Raccoons. We just kind of talk about ways you can overcome some of those obstacles with wildlife. So we put out a new episode every month on the first of the month. So we just released our last one here to kick us off on the new year. And we certainly enjoy it. It's fun for all of us who are involved. And if you're interested, you can listen to it wherever you listen to your podcasts right now.
I like the way you bring in questions from hunters and anglers. I love the way you address those. So nice job. Very nice job.
Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate hearing that.
All right, Rachel, listen, I appreciate your time, and thanks for reminding us about this is the time to apply for those springtime turkey tags, and continued good luck on the podcast, and we'll talk again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Rachel Leightner of the DNR, Michigan.gov/DNR. Check out that Wild Talk podcast. They really do a very nice job. And again, if you don't want to take a chance, if you're hunting in one of these limited quota areas, and you don't want to take a chance on being left out of the springtime turkey season for that particular spot, now is the time to apply for your tag. Yes, ZZ has never sold out. That's the hunt that I go for. But you know what? I'm going to apply anyway because it would break my heart if that was not available. But you've always got 234, the mosquito season, and the hardcore turkey hunters I know love that May season. We'll take a break. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, kind of a follow-up on what Rachel was talking about right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Escanaba on WCHT. 600 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Tawas at another combo station, WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. And as long as we're talking about, let's get in one more. Not a combo station, but Powerhouse, WTCM in Traverse City 580 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by our friends at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And again, the way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to pose a question to me or to pass along to somebody else. And oftentimes we use these in this segment as part of the content of the show. So it's really a chance for you to get a question answered and be involved in the programming of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. The best way to get these questions to me is just send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, so send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can try sending me a message through the social media platforms, and sometimes that works, but there's just so many of them, and I get so overwhelmed that sometimes those fall through the cracks. So again, if you would, an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's what Tim, and I'm going to say Licious, Lisius did, Tim Licious. And he sent me a question that he actually didn't expect was going to get used on the air. So Tim, I'm going to surprise you. He says, Mike, I think it's likely there's been a change in the local population abundance with gray and black squirrels. Now, obviously, Tim is a hardcore squirrel hunter. He says both species have coexisted in Michigan for a very long time. However, fox squirrels prefer and do best in small woodlots and fence. Let me back up. I'm reading the wrong one. That was the answer. This is from Tim. He says, "Here's would it be what I'm asking about was whether or not the DNR does any research on squirrels and if they have found that they're becoming more of a gray/black squirrel area and less fox squirrels. The fox squirrel is much meatier and I think easier to hunt than their cousin, the gray squirrel. Maybe us hunters have been preferring the big, easier squirrel, or maybe something else is involved in this, or maybe I'm just totally wrong and the numbers are the same." He said, "I'm not trying to start a Save the Fox Squirrel Foundation or change anything out of curiosity, and I don't expect this question will be aired, but I wonder if you could find something out." So that's the question from Tim. Now I'll go back to the response here. I posed this question to Adam Bump, who is the fur bearer and small game specialist for the DNR. He says, "Mike, I think it's most likely that there's just been a change in the local population abundance with gray and black squirrels. Both species have coexisted in Michigan for a very long time. However, fox squirrels prefer and do best in small woodlots and fence rows with lots of edge with farm fields and grasslands. Gray squirrels tend to do better in areas with more forested cover. In some areas of southern Michigan, as the amount of forested cover increases and those forested blocks become more connected, you might start to see gray squirrels in places you haven't in the past or may start seeing more of them. Squirrel populations of both species, according to Adam, can fluctuate quite a bit on a local scale. So seeing pretty significant changes in the numbers of either species in an area isn't too unusual. So there's the answer on that. If you were wondering about the fact that you're seeing different types of squirrels in your hunting area or backyard or back 40, there's the answer. I think this is interesting, though, because Tim asked a question that, what do we get questions on? We get questions on deer hunting. We get questions on salmon fishing. We get questions on turkey hunting. But we don't get many questions on squirrel hunting. And I'm glad to see this. And Tim, thank you for sending that email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I hope the fact that I used it on the air and used your name is not a concern. So let that be a lesson. If you're going to send me a question for the Ask Avery segment, just know that I will probably use it on the air. And thank you to Adam Bump, fur bearer and big game specialist and wildlife biologist for the DNR, for answering that. It's also interesting that Tim, and I'm not saying this is what he thought, that he would pose the question, is the DNR doing something to manipulate squirrel populations? No. The DNR doesn't get involved in things like that. I think they've got their hands full with deer and elk and turkeys and wolves and things like that. So I have seen nothing that shows that they have done any manipulation of squirrels or intend to. Strange things happen, though, right? I mean, several years ago now, they brought in the Sichuan pheasant that was designed to save us all because the ringneck was going down. And the Sichuan was supposed to live in wooded areas instead of grasslands and farmlands like the ringneck did. But that one tanked. So even though I think the DNR has done a great job on many different projects, and I'm not one of those people who hate the DNR, I do have to admit the Sichuan pheasant program did not work out very well. Thank you, Tim, for sending in that question. Thank you, Adam Bump, for answering it. And thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org, securitycu.org. When we come back for the third hour of this week's show, we'll talk with Michigan's Mr. Walleye, Mark Martin, as he gets ready to head to the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi and then to Hubbard Lake for one of his fishing vacation schools, coming up in Hour 3 of Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yeiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, and so glad to have you along with us as we. Well, this is the first show that's actually recorded in the new year, so happy New Year to you, and it feels like maybe it's finally wintertime, at least in my part of the state. Now, if you're listening in the Keweenaw, you might say, Avery, it's been wintertime for a long time. I get that. But across much of the state now, it is indeed wintertime and time for all of those outdoor activities. Well, like what? Like predator hunting. Early in the show, we talked with Randy Budde of Savage Dog Outdoors about predator hunting. We talked with Tony Soave about ice fishing. And you know what? I think I want to continue on this fishing vein right now with one of Michigan's best known anglers. I call him Michigan's Mr. Walleye. His name is Mark Martin. A little background on Mark, if you don't know, and I'm sure you do, but he's a guy who grew up on the west side of the state and really made a name for himself fishing Muskegon Lake and the Muskegon Channel after dark, catching trophy monster walleye consistently. Now, this is many, many years ago. When the whole concept of professional walleye tournament fishing came on the scene, and I think it was called the NWT or the PWT at that time, Professional Walleye Tournament Trail, Mark started to compete in that. And people, I heard him. I heard some naysayers say, well, yeah, he's a good stick after dark on that water, meaning Muskegon Lake and the Channel. But he can't compete during the daylight hours on all these different bodies of water. Well, guess what? He did. In fact, he went on to win the first national professional walleye championship ever held, was won by Mark Martin. Well, and he's done pretty good since then too. So people know now that he's a very well-rounded and expert angler on many species and many bodies of water. And it's always a pleasure to get him here on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Mark, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, to be back, Mike. That makes me feel good listening to you talk. I'm glad to be on your first show of the year, too. That's also a great accolade there, too. You know, I appreciate you asking me. You know, I always enjoy talking to your listeners. You know, it's trying to teach, you know, and that's kind of what I'm heading out doing right now, heading down the road to Houghton Lake right now.
Yeah. I was going to talk to you about that. I mean, we catch you right now as we are recording this midweek. I don't know. You're probably in a snowstorm over there, aren't you?
Yeah, a big one.
Yeah.
It's winter.
It is winter, and that makes you smile. I know it does.
Yes, it does. That's why I'm laughing. I was thinking about crying, you know, earlier, you know, starting out here because it was iffy, you know.
Iffy, yeah.
Iffy, you know, but like I tell everybody, you're not going to get away with not getting winter in. Just hang tight, and we'll go and get it done, and eventually, somehow, God willing, it does.
Well, you've got a busy weekend. Earlier in the weekend, you're at the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi, and then when you're done there, you're heading north to one of your your fishing vacation schools.
Right. I'm dropping the trailer off right now at the site and having my pro staff so they can work out of it while they're going to go and their job is to find fish this time. I said, you guys, you know, you're going to have it all, you know, you're Charlie in charge now. So it's kind of cool. You know, I'm handing off the reins to my pro staff and getting them involved in decision making, and they're good at fishing. Now we got to make sure that we get all the other things in place that make the whole thing, the three-ring circus, run.
Well, and you and I both know that ice conditions can change rapidly, and we're recording this in the middle of the week. But as we are talking right now, how is that ice on Houghton Lake?
6 to 10 inches up there. I got some pro staff out there since last Wednesday, and they've been advising me of the conditions, and there's about 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ice, so snowmobiles won't overheat. But I still would suggest putting scratchers on your snowmobiles if they're liquid cooled anyhow, for sure.
What do you mean by scratchers?
Well, that kicks up if there's no snow, that it takes the ice and chips it and throws it up on the track and up on the cooling tunnel, and it doesn't let it overheat. Or the high facts, too. Even other snowmobiles will have high facts, so you really want to keep it lubricated. And if there's no snow to lubricate it, you can burn your high facts, and all of a sudden you go to slow down or stop, and it's so hot it welds it together, and you don't go no more. Your track don't spin.
I see what you're saying. Well, listen, with information like that, then, is a quad, a four-wheel drive quad, is that the ultimate ice fishing transportation?
No, I'd say if I had to, say anything, I always tell everybody, get a snowmobile, because if push comes to shove, if there's a little crack or anything like that, or slush, you're not going to sink into the slush. You're not going to bust through the crack. You're going to go over cracks, and you're going to go across slush a lot easier than you are a four-wheeler, a side-by-side, any of them wheeled vehicles. We have, our hands full sometimes if the snow gets too deep, too, with a four-wheeler or anything like that, even a side-by-side. and people say, "Oh, I mean, that's the baddest one that there ever was." Well, okay. They go out on Saginaw Bay. I can remember one time out on Saginaw Bay, the guy had the baddest thing since the big monster trucks, and he gets out there about halfway, and we're all pushing him. And the next day, he wanted to have a ride with a pro on a snowmobile. So that when push comes to shove, a snowmobile always goes more places than a four-wheeler on the ice.
Gotcha. Hey, what are you talking about at the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi? And isn't it nice to have these shows back in existence again?
Oh man, huge! I mean, it's been so long. It'll be over a year or so. This one didn't run, and then the rest of them that show span hasn't run for 2 years. So it's been a long time for me, and I love going back there. It really means a lot to see my friends and see my people that come to the seminars and just to teach again. I just so glad that it happened again, to get back in the swing and feel normal again. Let's put it that way.
And what do you talk about at these seminars, Mark?
Oh, I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk, of course, a little bit about ice fishing, and I'm going to talk about techniques for open water, and a little bit of everything. It's what the person that's paying to come in wants to talk about into my seminar. I mean, you can try to stump the chump here, but I've done a lot of things wrong. So
it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. I can pretty much guarantee that. Nobody's going to walk into a Mark Martin seminar and give him a question that he can't answer.
Yeah, I've either done it wrong or done it wrong so much that I know how to do it right now. So bring your questions, and I'll file out the answers. And if I don't have the answer, I guarantee you there's somebody in the room that will. And I'm going to try to have one of my pro staff or two come in the room with me that do open water and ice fishing, just as an added, I don't know what shows they're going to be able to come in there with me, but that's even more of an incentive for these people to get into those shows, because I'm going to have some of the guys that help me out that I put great big credence into these people. I wouldn't have them with me if I didn't believe in them.
Gotcha. Mark, I always hear that first ice is some of the best ice fishing action, and we're basically in first ice right now. Why do you agree that that's the case, and if so, why?
Yeah, I agree with that, because for one thing, the boat traffic is at a minimal to begin with in the fall, and then all of a sudden it's frozen. So they really haven't been beat on like summertime. And wherever you left them in the fall, you should have taken a GPS waypoint, because they will still be there, especially on a super sharp drop, a super break where they can push the bait and everything up against and feed. That's what you're looking for, and not a long tapering flat or something. Even though Saginaw Bay is a long tapering flat, but their breaks are 1 foot, where I like breaks of 4 or 5 feet, but that's almost like having a 4 or 5 foot break on some of them little breaks in Saginaw.
Yeah. Well, listen, we got to take a break. I know you're driving. We're talking with Michigan's Mr. Walleye, Mark Martin. You can learn more about him at two websites, markmartins.net, and fishingvacationschool.com. We've got Mark right now as he's driving down a West Michigan road in a snowstorm, so we wanted to be careful there. But we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I want to talk more about ice fishing, about early ice fishing, and talk more about the fishing vacation schools as well, and what anglers, not just at Mark's school here, but weekend warriors can expect at a body of water like a Houghton Lake or a Hubbard or wherever else his schools are going to go. Again, learn more at markmartins.net and fishingvacationschool.com. Fishingvacationschool.com. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Feel free to reach out anytime. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. Although, I will admit, yesterday I was looking out the backyard at my outdoor getaway, and it didn't look real inviting because it was covered with snow, and the snow was blowing sideways, and But it did make me think that when it gets warm, it'll be nice to walk back out there again and enjoy what Reader has created for us. And it's not too early at all to start talking with the folks at Reader about your springtime projects and lawn maintenance, etc. But in the meantime, if you have snow removal that needs taken care of, Reader can do that as well. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. Also, while you're online, why don't you head on over to markmartins.net and fishingvacationschool.com. We're talking with Mark Martin right now. Mark, tell me about this, more about this concept of fishing vacation school. This is something you've done for several years now, and it's been extremely popular.
Yeah, it started in Winnebagosh in Minnesota 32 years ago now.
Wow.
And with Gary Roach and Al Linder, I was just a little fledgling back then, like my pro staff, learning the ropes on everything. And then one day it just got too much for them. They had enough to do without that. And, in the meantime, they added to the school because it was strictly for outdoor writers to begin with. It wasn't for the students. It wasn't for the general public.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, it was for bringing in media from across North America into Winnebagosh, and we'd show them the brand new ice fishing equipment for this coming year. They'd be able to write for their readers, and anybody with a radio show would record it, and they'd talk with us about the equipment and blah, 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 and they'd go back and do it all. And then after a few of them times, some of the, the writers and outdoor media people said, God, our viewers, our listeners are, they're asking us, could you take us out? What would it cost to come and do something with you guys? And we went, I never thought about it. But the writers in outdoor media, they said, hey guys, this would be the best way to do it, because now we're getting you just your opinion of this equipment and your opinion of fishing and and it's the same, kind of the same all the time. But if we have new blood come in here, learning with the same thing, you're teaching us how to use new stuff, and they're doing it for the first time with, on a new lake and everything, we can be more believable. So we started doing that, and we realized that's the cool way to go. And that even showcases the sponsor's products even better, not coming out of our mouth how good it is, but somebody that's never even had it in their hands before that are catching fish once they know how to use it. So I just carried on with the tradition of having outdoor writers come and the students come together, and the outdoor media fish with the students, go around and interview the students and ask them about, what they're learning. People, it's hard for us because we do it so much repetition all the time, but for a newbie or somebody that doesn't do it like we do, there's a lot that they got to talk about. And, we may just simplify things where, maybe we missed the boat when we explain things, where the students don't miss it. They catch on to everything that helped them catch a fish. So, that's where we're at. And the reason I still do, and that's why we, the media is kind of like you get to see the tree fall in the woods all the time. Whereas if there's nobody around, you don't know if that tree's been laying there 100 years or yesterday, So I want to make sure that somebody's there to record
all the cool things that are happening and get the education out to the mass public. And that's the only way to do it. You can't do it student word of mouth, my word of mouth. You can only reach a few people, but they have many, many people that they can reach. And nowadays we got social media. So all my pro staff become little media people too, and they keep putting things all over every day. And I'll get to see it at night, what they've done. So my school touches the lives of thousands of people every day of what's happening on where we're at, what we're using, and what we're using could be just as detrimental for them going on a different lake tomorrow after they read it, and put that into play too, because everything we teach them so they can go to their body of water and be just as deadly as they are, say, on Houghton Lake. So, and people will look at some of the stuff we do and just shake their head. And by the time they leave on Wednesday, they're going, hey, it works. And, we teach them how to use Navionics, and now they can communicate with other people that are familiar with reading maps. And you don't really need to know a lot. You need to know a lot about a lake to, like they say, 10% of the lake holds 90% of the fish, and that's what we teach the people, where to look for that 10%. And and we can do that with Navionics on our phones, and that's the textbook of all these students and writers and everything. If they want to move, they got to tell us where they want to move so we can see, and then we can make suggestions. Well, when you start going that far, why don't you look at right here? And before you go that far. So, we're all talking and making sense to each other instead of going, yeah, right by Johnson's Point over here, there's that red flagpole sticking up by that long dock that's still in the water or in the ice. That kind of stuff just doesn't fly no more. It used to line up two trees and find your spot that way. People still do that kind of stuff, but it's the old school, and we're trying to bring people into the new school, into college, and that's kind of what we are, the college of fishing, for ice fishing and even open water fishing. I got the people that made a lot of mistakes that we can teach people how to do it as right as possible, and there's going to be changes every year that I have the school. I may have to bite my tongue from what I told them the year before, because I found how to tweak it a little bit more to make it more deadly than it was the year before. So it's just not, they can't, just because they come to one school, they got to come to another, because they realize there's something new that we pick up, and we learn at the same time. Maybe even a student teaches us something that we didn't know. So we got an open mind at everything. It's not like we're going to ram something down somebody's throat, but we're not going to let you sit there and keep doing it wrong either. So, it's a fun school to be part of, and it started 32 years ago with Al Linder and Gary Roach. They said, take it, Mark, and I'm still here taking it. And I'm teaching the young guys how to, take it eventually from me and do. In fact, I had a Zoom, they just started Zoom calls here this last Monday, and I had Pat Bentley and Dan Zatarga. I said, hey, you guys, you're going to do this. I said, you know what the guys have to have, the gals have to have before they get here. So I think you need to talk for me and talk for the school. And so I'm giving responsibilities away, kind of like Gary and Al did to me. And it's fun sitting back and watching these guys run with it, because they're excited about the school all the time and what we give back. And this year they looked at or said something to me after I told them all the people that were coming. They go, God, Mark, did you realize how many people are coming back again and again and again? And I said, I've recognized some of them, but they go, no, this one and this one, just at Houghton Lake, they didn't just come to Houghton Lake. They came from maybe Mullet or Saginaw Bay prior to that, and they're trying to hit every place that we fish because they want to pick up on all the little nuances all the time.
You mentioned that Navionics app. I actually just pulled it up on my phone right now. How do I use this? And this can't replace my electronics on my boat, can it?
It can. Even when we do open water school, I can communicate better instead of having you have to change and go somewhere else on the map to say, we're going to go and fish over here after we're done fishing here. Well, I want you to keep paying attention to your plotter on your boat. I don't want to scroll across the screen and start telling you I'm going to want you to pull out your phone and explain on your phone, and so you can drive your boat better. And the same thing happens, in school at night. One person will stand up at a time and say, I fished off Susie Q Point. And while everybody, if they got a Navionics app, they see where Susie Q Point is, and they can follow right where that guy's talking about that inside turn. Otherwise, there's no clue. He might as well be talking to the wall, because now it brings, wow. And then the guy raises his hand going, well, did you try the other inside turn on the other side of the Susie Q Point? Now they're starting to think together. They're starting to think like fishermen. They're starting to think where the fish are. And the other thing is when we get through teaching people with Navionics apps, you can sit at your kitchen table or in your vehicle going down the road, whatever, and you can look at it and go, well, there's a steep drop-off. There's a really cool steep drop-off right next to an underwater island right there. So already it's sitting there, not even seeing the bottom. Maybe you've never been there before. You got five waypoints that you want to go to right now. When you get there, even if there's a whole crowd of people out there fishing, that's not where you're going to gravitate. And we teach people that by the time you get there, they've chased everything away from there. So.
Mark, always a pleasure. Hopefully I will see you at the Ultimate Fishing Show in Novi. If not, I'm sure our paths will cross again soon. I would encourage people to go to the websites markmartins.net and fishingvacationschool.com. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Mark Martin, Michigan's Mr. Walleye. I was trying to think of what my title is for him, but it should be pretty self-explanatory. And an interesting guy who's been around the fishing industry for a lot of years. He knows it inside and out, and he doesn't mind sharing information, and I love that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Lots more coming up. Stay with us. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on News Radio 790 WSGW and 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. You know by now that for 3 hours, this corner of the building is called the Outdoor Magazine Studio. I'm here with Pat Johnson doing a wonderful job as always. Although earlier we were lamenting a certain football game that did not result in a national championship game, but we don't need to bring it back up, Pat. Thank you for that. No, Pat does a great job. I appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, ductwork cleaning, whatever you need to keep your house running smoothly, soundly, to keep you warm or cool, depending on the season, to keep you dry. The folks from Wilds can take care of it, as they have for me for many, many years now. I had a question with a unit in our house. I thought, I don't think it's running right. It was putting out heat, but the condenser, the coils outside were freezing up. And I talked to the folks at Wilds. They said, nope, that's exactly the way it's designed to run. It'll go into a defrost mode, and you're good to go. I said, great, good to know. I don't need to worry about it because the folks from Wilds are worrying about it for me. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. Mark Martin was talking about the Navionics app. And while he was doing that, I couldn't help but to fire my Navionics app up. And, of course, the map's updated. And I'm sitting here scrolling through this thinking, okay, he's right. That would be a good place to fish. That would be a good place to fish. That would be a good place to fish. So thanks, Mark, for that. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk with Mark, though. I did have the pleasure years and years ago when he was still guiding on Muskegon Lake in the Muskegon Channel. My dad and I went out with him one night after dark, and it was a very, very interesting experience. We got a couple of fish, no monsters. I was really hoping for a double-digit fish. That didn't happen, but we still had a good time and learned a lot. You know, I think that's one of the goals of this show is if I can bring you guests that can help you learn more about your outdoor experiences, your outdoor passions, that's something I want to do. Or if we can get into topics that maybe can make you think about what you're doing or how you're doing things. And I'm thinking in particular of the second hour of this week's show when I was talking with my buddy Tony Sobe about how he went through the ice on Saginaw Bay. And it's, like I said, it's a story about Saginaw Bay, but it can pertain to any big water ice. And if it can happen to a guy like Tony, who is a conservation officer, spent many years out there patrolling that water, actually, and ice and rescuing people out there. And, you know, if it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody. So just keep some things in mind. And when things go south on our hunting and fishing adventures, it seems like, for one thing, it happens really fast. I've been involved in a couple of these now where mundane, especially fishing trips, turned into absolute tragedies. And it happens fast. And there's something about being involved in a situation that you had intended to be so stress-free, so enjoyable, so fun, and to have something bad happen in that situation, it almost seems like it feels worse. You know, I mean, and I don't even know if that's a good description, but at least that's the way I felt about such things. Anyway, it is wintertime now, isn't it? Depending on where you are right now. I don't know if it's snowing or blowing or, well, it's snowing and blowing here right now. I can tell you looking out the window. I don't know if you've got ice, but it's probably making ice. And it's time to get involved in such activities. So what's going on right now? Ice fishing, predator hunting. Time to put in for your springtime turkey application if you want one of the limited quota hunts. Now, if you just want 234, which is the mosquito season, there is, to be honest, there's no reason in the world to apply right now for hunt 234 because you can walk in in the middle of March and just buy it. Even hunt ZZ, which is the Southern Michigan private land hunt that I love so much, it's basically 6 weeks long. It has never sold out. But I'm not willing to take a chance. I will apply for that tag knowing I will get it because it would break my heart. It would break my heart to know that because I either didn't want to take the time to apply or wanted to save myself the $5 or whatever the application fee is to miss a chance. Now, some of you will do it just because you hate the DNR and you don't want to give them $5. That's fine. That's fine. You know, everybody's got a right to look at things the way you want to look at them, that's for sure. What else? Oh, the Pure Michigan Hunt winners. They should be drawing those very soon now, and I will tell you right now that I did win. I'm one of the three. I have no inside information. They didn't even draw them yet, but I'm thinking if I put that out, that positive energy, if I put it out in the universe, that when they actually do draw the names, maybe it'll be a Mike A will be the winner. Now, I say that knowing that if I should be so lucky to get a Pure Michigan Hunt, and I was dumb enough to predict it on the air here, I'm sure I will get some grief over that. But that's grief that I would gladly deal with. Got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. Dave, by the way, catering our Trinity Monitor wild game dinner after taking a year off. We're getting back on board. That's coming up March 5th. Tickets not on sale yet, but I will let you know as it gets closer. More right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. I say that every week, and I mean it sincerely each and every week. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show, and it would break my heart. I also appreciate the fact that wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner has been with us almost every week for years and years and years, even back to when he was having a heart attack. He talked to me from the parking lot of the hospital. Talk about dedication. And Dave, let's make sure that doesn't happen again, all right?
I sure as heck hope not. A couple of them was bad enough.
Yeah, let's avoid those in the future.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You too. I wouldn't wish that on anybody either.
Oh, no. Hey, listen, on a lighter note, I've been hearing about some really, really good reports of people catching Lakers off the thumb, off the piers and breakwalls. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, some guys that worked for me brought me a fish. It was probably close to 30 inches long. And in the belly, it had about a 6 to 7 inch perch and tons of shad. And they're still hitting them on Cleos. They're still biting Cleos, believe it or not, with a full belly. And they were at Caseville, and you can get them in Grindstone City and anywhere, I guess, along the coast there that there's any kind of cover for them.
Yeah, I just got to wait for the right wind now because of the ice, right?
Right. You got to have a westerly wind to blow the ice out. If the wind is from the east, the ice and slush comes in and you can't fish. So I deep fried them. I made them New Orleans style. I did an Italian style one, and the fish taste so much different now than they used to. When we used to fish them, when we had a boat, we could trailer over to on Lake Michigan.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear these Lakers, they got red meat these days, and they taste really, really good.
Yep. I'm impressed. So anyway, the way that I thought it would be really good would be the Lake Trout Italiano. We did this for your TV show, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Anyways, you need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless fillet per person, and take about... It's going to be about a cup each, and this is going to be for 4 portions of fish. So sliced onion, sliced mushroom, green pepper, or you could use red pepper for the color, or the yellow pepper. You kind of want them not too thickly sliced. And you need an 8-ounce package of shredded mozzarella, a couple of cans of California tomatoes. You can buy them diced or whole, and you can hand crush them if you like. Anywhere from 6 to 8 cloves of garlic, about a teaspoon or so of anchovies diced up fine. If you really are opposed to that, but it just adds so much.
You're back. We lost you. You said it adds so much, and you dropped off. So much flavor, I'm assuming you said.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're in Standish, and we got some kind of not so good reception with the weather.
No, you sound good now, Dave.
Okay, we got you need a couple tablespoons of parsley, chopped up medium, teaspoon of basil, or more or less. Same thing with oregano, or you could use Italian spice, about a teaspoon of that total. 1/3 of a cup of olive oil and some coarse black pepper ground to flavor to your taste. So in a medium hot pan, you want to saute the garlic and onions and anchovies and spices and everything else for just a little while, kind of break the flavor loose, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Add the tomatoes that have been kind of drained. You don't want a lot of that liquid because you're going to have to put this over the fish in the oven. So cook that down a little bit so it's pretty thick but not dry. So you want to put the fillet of fish down on a lightly greased with olive oil, oven-proof pan, and then grate the pepper all over the fish real good. Put a skin side down, rib side up. And then top it with mozzarella cheese and Parmesan too if you like. because this is going to be hot when you put it on. If it is when you make it right now instead of any time earlier, it's only going to take about 12, 15 minutes in the 350-degree oven, uncovered. And I'll tell you what, this was my favorite when I made it 3 different ways for myself.
You actually tried this in your kitchen at the house?
Yeah.
So it's taste tested by wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner.
Oh, yeah, I made it for the TV show a while back, but I really haven't had a lot of lake trout. But I looked up my recipes, and I tell you what, we Cajuned it up and cut it into strips, and we got a little fry daddy at the house, so we fried some up, and then I made it Italian style this way, and then New Orleans, and to me, this was the hit. But I like Italian food myself. I made some angel hair pasta and served it next to it, and it was lovely.
It sounds wonderful, Dave. Always a pleasure. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. Because, again, if you weren't listening to either the broadcast version of the show or the podcast, and if you weren't checking in with me and following me on social media, it would be all for nothing. There would be no reason to do this show. And I tell you what, after 40 years, more than 40 years in the broadcast industry now, I still enjoy it. I'm blessed to be able to do something that I really, truly love after all these years. And I'm not done yet. In many ways, I am more excited, and I get rejuvenated almost every day. And I have you to thank for that. Check out the website, Mike Avery Outdoors. And if you want, hit me up, email Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Again, the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.